In the spring of 1947, as America was still reeling from the scars of World War II, another battle was about to begin, this time not on the fields of Europe or the Pacific, but on the grassy diamonds of Major League Baseball. The country called baseball its national pastime, yet it was a game that mirrored the nation's ugliest divide. Black and white, separated not only by laws and customs, but by a rigid wall of exclusion built into America's favorite sport. When Jackie Robinson stepped onto Ebbets Field in Brooklyn wearing the uniform of the Dodgers, he was hailed as a hero by some and condemned as a threat by many others. His arrival was not merely a sports story. It was a social experiment, a gamble, perhaps even a cruel test orchestrated by baseball's establishment. Was Jackie Robinson chosen to be celebrated as a legend or sacrificed as a pawn? This question lingers at the heart of his story. What unfolded was not just the tale of a ball player, but of a man carrying the weight of history, enduring unspeakable hate, and reshaping the conscience of a nation one stolen base at a time. Jackie Robinson's story cannot be told without first understanding the America that produced him and the America that resisted him. Baseball, often romanticized as a mirror of national values, was in truth a mirror of segregation itself. For decades, Major League Baseball had operated under an unwritten but fiercely enforced rule. No black man would wear the uniform of a Major League team. Black athletes, no matter how talented, were relegated to the Negro Leagues, a parallel world of extraordinary skill, vibrant culture, and crushing injustice. The Negro Leagues produced legends: Satchel Paige, Josh Gibson, Cool Papa Bell, men who might have rivaled or even surpassed the white heroes enshrined in Cooperstown had they been given the chance. But to the power brokers of Major League Baseball, these athletes were invisible. Their greatness denied entry to the sport's grandest stage. The hypocrisy was staggering. In a nation that celebrated freedom and equality, baseball remained a bastion of exclusion. Stadiums filled with cheers for Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, and Joe DiMaggio, while only miles away, black fans watched their heroes play in dusty fields, barred from the mainstream. Yet beneath the surface, America was changing. The Second World War had forced Americans to confront contradictions they could no longer ignore. Black soldiers had fought, bled, and died under the American flag, only to return home to second-class citizenship. The pressure to dismantle segregation was mounting, and Major League Baseball, whether it liked it or not, was about to become the stage on which this struggle played out. At the center of this upheaval stood Branch Rickey, the visionary general manager of the Brooklyn Dodgers. Rickey understood that baseball could not remain segregated forever, but his motivations were complex. Some say Rickey acted out of pure conviction, driven by a moral compass that demanded integration. Others argue that Rickey was above all a businessman, recognizing that integrating the Dodgers could expand the fan base, tap into new talent, and set his team apart from competitors. Whatever the mix of idealism and pragmatism, Rickey knew that if he was to break baseball's color barrier, he would need more than just a great athlete. He would need the right man, a man who could endure unimaginable abuse without striking back, who could carry himself with dignity even as hatred poured down upon him. Rickey's search was not for the best player available. It was for the perfect test subject. Satchel Paige, widely regarded as the greatest pitcher never to play in the major leagues, seemed the obvious choice. His fastball was legendary, his showmanship unmatched, his dominance unquestionable. Yet Paige was older, flamboyant, and fiercely independent, qualities that made him both captivating and uncontrollable. Rickey knew that the first black player in Major League Baseball would be scrutinized beyond comprehension, every gesture magnified, every mistake weaponized. He could not risk someone who might rebel openly against the abuse that would surely come. So Rickey looked elsewhere, and his eyes fell on Jackie Robinson. Robinson was not the most famous Negro League star, but he embodied something Rickey believed essential: Discipline, restraint, and a willingness to play by the rules, even when those rules were unjust. Born in Cairo, Georgia, and raised in Pasadena, California, Robinson had grown up in a world where racism was real, but less suffocating than in the Deep South. He had excelled as a multi-sport athlete at UCLA, starring in football, basketball, track, and baseball. He had served in the U.S. Army during World War II, where he had already shown a defiant courage by refusing to move to the back of a segregated military bus. Court-martialed but acquitted, Robinson emerged from the army with both a scarred soul and an unshakable sense of dignity. He was intelligent, articulate, and carried himself with the quiet confidence of a man who knew his worth. For Rickey, Jackie Robinson was not just a player. He was the experiment. When Rickey summoned Robinson to his office in August 1945, the meeting that followed would change the course of history. Rickey laid out the challenge in stark terms. Robinson would face torrents of abuse, racial slurs, physical intimidation, death threats. Pitchers would aim for his head. Base runners would spike his legs. Fans would jeer him mercilessly. And through it all, Rickey demanded, Robinson could not fight back. "I'm looking for a ball player with guts enough not to fight back," Rickey said. Robinson, incredulous, asked, "Are you looking for a Negro who is afraid to fight back?" Rickey's answer was sharp. "I'm looking for a man with guts enough not to." It was a cruel bargain. Robinson was being asked to endure humiliation not because he lacked the courage to resist, but because the stakes were too high. One swing of his fist could set back the cause of integration for years, perhaps decades. Robinson understood the gravity of the moment. He agreed, not out of submission, but out of resolve. He would channel his anger into performance, his rage into excellence. He would fight not with fists, but with stolen bases, line drives, and dazzling defense. And in doing so, he would test not only himself, but the conscience of a nation. The following season, Robinson joined the Montreal Royals, the Dodgers' minor league affiliate. His debut in 1946 offered a glimpse of both the promise and peril to come. In his first game, Robinson electrified the crowd with 4 hits, including a home run, and stole 2 bases. The performance was a declaration. He belonged. Yet the hostility was immediate. Southern teams threatened boycotts, fans hurled slurs, and opposing players sought to injure him on the field. Robinson endured, guided by the pact he had made with Rickey. Each base he stole, each run he scored, was an act of defiance, not just against his opponents, but against the system itself. By April 15, 1947, the experiment reached its climax. Jackie Robinson was called up to the Brooklyn Dodgers, becoming the first black player in Major League Baseball in the modern era. As he walked onto Ebbets Field, the weight of centuries pressed upon him. The cheers of some fans mixed with the venom of others, and Robinson stood at the center of a storm unlike any athlete had ever faced. His mere presence on the field was a political act, a declaration that the walls of segregation could be breached. But the question lingered. Was he a hero chosen to lead, or a pawn selected to suffer? The 1947 season was not simply a test of Jackie Robinson's athletic ability, it was a test of his humanity. Every stadium he entered became a courtroom, and every pitch thrown toward him was a verdict. The jeers were relentless, the insults venomous. In Philadelphia, opposing players unleashed a torrent of slurs so vile that even seasoned reporters cringed. Pitchers hurled fastballs at his head, catchers spat insults into his ears, and base runners sharpened their spikes like weapons. Robinson absorbed it all, his silence more powerful than any retaliation could have been. By refusing to engage, he forced the nation to confront its own ugliness. He became a mirror, reflecting back the hatred of a divided America. Yet in the midst of this hostility, there were moments of profound courage from unexpected places. One of the most enduring came when Pee Wee Reese, the white shortstop from Kentucky and the Dodgers captain, walked over to Robinson during a game in Cincinnati. With the crowd hurling abuse, Reese placed his arm around Robinson's shoulders in a gesture of solidarity. It was a small act, but it carried immense weight. In that moment, Reese signaled that Robinson was not alone, that his teammates could stand with him. Photographs of that gesture endure as one of the most iconic images in sports history, a reminder that solidarity can pierce even the darkest hatred. Still, Robinson's journey was not made easier simply because a few teammates defended him. The strain was relentless. He played under constant surveillance, his family received threats, and his very presence in the league was debated in newspapers across the country. The experiment Rickey had designed was in full motion. Robinson was the subject, the league, and the fans, the observers. Would America accept a black man on the field of its most cherished sport? The answer was not immediate, but Robinson's play made it impossible to deny his place. He batted .297 in his rookie year, led the league in stolen bases, and was named Rookie of the Year. Numbers alone did not capture the magnitude of his achievement. Every hit was a rebuttal, every stolen base a declaration, every run scored a challenge to the status quo. Critics who had sneered at his inclusion were forced to reckon with his excellence. The Dodgers, buoyed by Robinson's contributions, surged into the World Series. Though they lost to the Yankees, Robinson had proven what many already knew. Talent had no color. Yet even as the headlines celebrated his achievements, the deeper question lingered. Was Robinson truly being honored as a legend, or was he still being used as a tool? Major League Baseball reaped the rewards of his presence, drawing larger crowds and attracting attention from black fans who had previously supported only the Negro Leagues. The league profited, but Robinson bore the scars. Beyond the field, Robinson became a reluctant figurehead for a burgeoning civil rights movement. His restraint on the diamond mirrored the philosophy later articulated by leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., the power of dignity in the face of hatred. Robinson's endurance provided a blueprint for non-violent resistance long before sit-ins and marches captured the nation's attention. Yet Robinson himself was no saintly caricature. He seethed internally, confided his rage to his wife Rachel, and wrestled with the injustice of being asked to suppress his humanity for the sake of progress. His sacrifice was real, not abstract. He was forced to live a double life, fiery and competitive in private, composed and unflappable in public. The Negro Leagues, meanwhile, began to wither. What had once been a thriving ecosystem of black baseball collapsed as stars gradually migrated to the majors. Fans followed, eager to see their heroes on the grandest stage. But the integration of Major League Baseball was a double-edged sword. While it opened doors for individual black athletes, it decimated the institutions that had sustained black communities for decades. Teams disbanded, stadiums closed, and owners who had once wielded influence lost their livelihoods. Robinson's breakthrough symbolized progress, but it also came with the unintended consequence of dismantling a proud tradition. Integration, as it often does, brought both gain and loss. Robinson's success emboldened others. Soon, players like Larry Doby, Monty Irvin, and Roy Campanella followed. The color barrier was crumbling, but Robinson remained the focal point. He was the pioneer, the man who had endured the first wave of vitriol so that others might have a smoother path. His career blossomed. Six-time All-Star, League MVP in 1949, a World Series champion in 1955. Each accolade solidified his place in history. Yet behind the triumphs, Robinson carried a weight that few could comprehend. Every time he suited up, he was reminded that his margin for error was non-existent. A slump could be interpreted not as a bad week, but as evidence that black players did not belong. A mistake in the field could reinforce prejudice. He had to be perfect, or close to it, at all times. The pressure was suffocating, but Robinson thrived under it. His style of play was electrifying, aggressive, and daring. He stole home plate 19 times in his career, a feat of both skill and audacity. He rattled pitchers with his base running, challenged defenders with his speed, and ignited crowds with his energy. He turned the game into a battlefield of wit and will, daring opponents to underestimate him. In doing so, he redefined baseball itself, injecting a new dynamism into a game often criticized for its slowness. Fans, even those who had once jeered him, could not help but admire his brilliance. Still, the experiment continued. Was Robinson's acceptance genuine or conditional? He was celebrated when he excelled, but reminders of prejudice lurked everywhere. Hotels refused to house him, restaurants turned him away, and hostile fans never ceased their taunts. Even within the Dodgers clubhouse, acceptance was gradual, not immediate. Robinson's resilience masked the toll it took. Stress gnawed at him, his temper flared privately, and his health began to fray. Yet he pressed on, unwilling to let the forces aligned against him claim victory. Robinson's presence forced America to ask uncomfortable questions. If a black man could excel on the baseball diamond, what justification remained for excluding black Americans from schools, neighborhoods, or voting booths? His achievements struck at the heart of segregationist logic. He became not only a baseball player, but a symbol, a living refutation of the myth of racial inferiority. Yet this symbolism came at a cost. Robinson longed to be seen simply as a man, not a monument. He wanted his skills to define him, not his skin color. But history rarely grants such simplicity. Robinson was cast in a role larger than himself, and he bore it with both pride and weariness. By the early 1950s, Jackie Robinson had become more than a ball player. He was an institution, a symbol woven into the fabric of American culture. Yet being an institution did not mean he was immune from criticism or conflict. Within the Dodgers clubhouse, some teammates admired him deeply, while others resented the attention he commanded. In rival cities, pitchers still aimed fastballs at his head, and fans clung to their bigotry. The experiment of integration had not eliminated racism. It had only forced it into new battlegrounds. Robinson continued to absorb blows, both literal and figurative, with the same resolve that had carried him since 1947. But as his career advanced, he also grew bolder, less willing to remain silent. The man Branch Rickey had selected precisely for his restraint now began to speak out. Robinson's voice extended beyond baseball. He wrote columns, gave speeches, and lent his influence to political causes. He criticized discrimination in housing, in employment, in education. He challenged presidents and confronted institutions. Some supporters of baseball's grand experiment had hoped Robinson would remain apolitical, a quiet symbol of progress. But Robinson refused to be confined. He knew that his platform came with responsibility, and he used it. His willingness to criticize both allies and enemies alike made him a complex, sometimes polarizing figure. He was not content to be a token. He demanded real change. On the field, Robinson's impact was undeniable. In 1949, he won the National League's Most Valuable Player award, leading the league in batting average and stolen bases. His aggressive style continued to electrify fans and intimidate opponents. He brought a new dimension to baseball, a game of speed and daring that contrasted with the stoic traditions of the past. Younger black players who followed in his footsteps credited him with breaking the path, but they also acknowledged the unique burden he carried. They would never face the same concentrated hatred that Robinson had endured, and for that, they owed him everything. As Robinson aged, his body began to betray him. The toll of years under relentless stress showed itself in declining performance. Injuries mounted, his batting average dipped, and the once dazzling speed slowed. In 1956, after a decade in the majors, Robinson retired, leaving behind a legacy unmatched in its historical significance. But retirement did not bring peace. He remained active in business and politics, often taking positions that stirred controversy. He campaigned for civil rights, but also criticized aspects of the movement he felt were misguided. He supported certain politicians but condemned others, regardless of party affiliation. Robinson was no one's puppet. His independence sometimes alienated former allies, but it cemented his reputation as a man of principle. Meanwhile, the legacy of integration continued to unfold. The Negro Leagues had all but vanished, their players scattered, their history neglected. Major League Baseball reaped the benefits of the talent pipeline, but offered little acknowledgement of what had been lost. Robinson often spoke of this with sadness. He recognized that progress for individuals had come at the cost of institutions that had sustained black pride for decades. He never forgot the players who had been denied their rightful chance, men like Josh Gibson, whose greatness remained confined to the margins of history. Robinson carried their memory with him, a reminder that his success was both a triumph and a tragedy. In 1962, Robinson was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame on the first ballot. The honor was undeniable, but Robinson's induction speech reflected his humility. He acknowledged the support of his teammates, his family, and Branch Rickey. He thanked those who had stood by him in the darkest moments. Yet even in that moment of triumph, he could not forget the larger struggle. Baseball had changed, but America remained scarred by inequality. Robinson's induction was not an endpoint, but a milestone in an ongoing fight. Robinson's later years were marked by health challenges. Diabetes ravaged his body, leaving him nearly blind by the time of his death. He died in 1972 at the age of 53, far too young, but not before witnessing some of the fruits of the movement he had helped inspire. By then, black players were stars across Major League Baseball. Civil rights legislation had been enacted, and America was slowly, painfully, moving toward a more inclusive future. Yet Robinson himself never stopped pressing for more. He once said he would not be satisfied until he saw a black manager in Major League Baseball, a dream that would not be realized until after his death. The paradox of Jackie Robinson endures. He was both hero and pawn, both legend and experiment. Major League Baseball had used him to test the waters of integration, to see how America might react. But Robinson had taken that role and transformed it, bending the experiment to his own will. He refused to be broken. He refused to be silenced. He turned the weight of expectation into fuel, transforming pressure into performance, hatred into history. The league may have chosen him for pragmatic reasons, but his own strength, talent, and dignity made him far more than a test subject. He became an icon whose influence extended far beyond the ballpark. Robinson's story is not a simple tale of triumph. It is a reminder that progress often comes at the expense of those who must bear disproportionate burdens. He carried the pain of a people, absorbed the hatred of a nation, and endured trials that would have broken lesser men. His reward was both glory and suffering, honor and sacrifice. In the end, Jackie Robinson forced America to look at itself, to question its values, and to confront its contradictions. He was chosen as an experiment, but he died a legend. Jackie Robinson's life was a collision of greatness and sacrifice, a story that reveals both the cruelty and the courage of America in the mid-20th century. He was asked to endure humiliation so that others might have opportunity, to swallow his rage so that doors could open. In doing so, he became a symbol of resilience, a pioneer who changed not only baseball but the nation itself. Yet to reduce him to a symbol alone is to overlook the man, the competitor who stole home with reckless daring, the father who endured sleepless nights over threats to his family, the citizen who demanded justice with an unflinching voice. Robinson's legacy is not one of simple victory, but of complex humanity. He was the subject of a grand experiment, yet he transformed that experiment into a revolution. When we remember Jackie Robinson, we remember both the pain and the progress, both the weight he carried and the world he changed. His story endures not because it is comfortable, but because it is true. One man's courage can expose a nation's soul, and one man's sacrifice can alter its destiny forever.